Well,
Well,
good
good
morning,
morning,
everyone,
everyone,
and
and
welcome to
welcome to
today's
today's
webinar,
webinar,
Increasing
Increasing
Youth
Youth
Voice
Voice
and
and
Leadership,
Leadership,
hosted by the
hosted by the
Resource
Resource
Basket and
Basket and
Alaska
Alaska
After
After
School
School
Network.
Network.
Today's
Today's
webinar
webinar
is
is
part of
part
our
of our
Supporting
Supporting
Youth
Youth
series.
series.
Before our
Before our
presenters
presenters
begin
begin
today, my
today,
name
my
is
name is
Amy
Amy
Gorn, and
Gorn,
I
and
am
I
your
am your
host
host
for this
for this
hour-long
hour-long
training.
training.
I am a
I am a
team
team
member
member
with the
with the
Resource
Resource
Basket,
Basket,
which is
which
an
is an
online
online
training and
training and
technical
technical
assistance
assistance
center for
center for
those who
those who
work with
work with
or
or
support
support
rural
rural
Alaska
Alaska
Native
Native
youth.
youth.
Our
Our
website,
website,
www.alaskanativeyouth.org,
www.alaskanativeyouth.org,
provides
provides
resources,
resources,
opportunities for
opportunities for
trainings and
trainings and
funding, as
funding,
well
as
as
well as
uplifting
uplifting
stories of
stories of
supporting
supporting
youth.
youth.
Before we
Before
get
we get
started, I
started,
want
I
to
want to
review a
review a
few
few
things that
things
may be
that may be
helpful for
helpful
you to
for you
make
to
the
make the
most of our
most of our
time
time
together.
together.
On the
On the
bottom
bottom
left-hand
left-hand
side of
side
the
of the
screen,
screen,
there
there
is
is
information
information
for
for
today's
today's
audio
audio
if
if
you
you
are
are
unable
unable
to
to
use
use
your
your
computer's speakers.
speakers.
If
If
you
you
are
are
joining
joining
us
us
on
on
the
the
teleconference
teleconference
line,
line,
you
you
have
have
all
all
been
been
placed
placed
in the
in the
listen-only
listen-only
mode.
mode.
If you
If
are
you are
listening
listening
through
through
your
your
computer,
computer,
check
check
that
that
your
your
volume
volume
is
is
turned
turned
all the
all the
way
way
up.
up. Today's webinar will be recorded and made available on the Resource Basket website within the next week. I will also send an email to all registrants with the link to access this recording. Points of view or opinions expressed in this webinar are those of the presenters and do not necessarily represent the official position or policies of the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention or the U.S. Department of Justice. Now we'll take a look around the webinar screen. On the top of the screen, there is an arrow pointing to a little person with its hand raised. Please go ahead right now and click the little person and then click Agree on the drop-down menu. Okay, great. That seems to be working for everyone. Now, if you click the little person again, go ahead and clear your status. Throughout the training, you can use this little person to participate with us. Additionally, you can talk with us through the chat function. The chat is located in the lower right-hand screen. Many of you have been using it to give us information about feedback or to give some good morning greetings, so that's wonderful. If you are joining us online and are viewing as a group at a computer, please go ahead and type in the chat box how many of you there are and where you're all from. If you're watching by yourself, just write a hello and where you're from. That way we can get to know everyone a little bit. Wonderful. We are seeing many, many locations across our great state. We are truly excited right now to see this. So once again, another great good morning to everyone joining our webinar today on increasing youth voice and leadership from the Resource Basket and Alaska After School Network. Please continue to let us know who you are and where you're from in the chat box as we continue along. I've just opened up a poll, and we want you to try out this interaction as you will have other opportunities to participate in these polls during the hour. So using your cursor, please select which age you often work with youth or support youth. You can also include which age of group of youth, which youth you work with and those that you support. We'll just give this a moment for everyone to try out our interactive poll feature. You'll see the results here as they're coming in. We're seeing a good number of our participants working with 14 to 18-year-olds, some in our younger age ranges from 12 onward, 13 onward, and a couple in our older range of young adult youth person definitions. So keep those coming in. We'll close this in just a moment, and you'll have other opportunities to participate in polls during our presentation this hour. Thank you, everyone. Our first presenter today is Thomas Azzarella. He is the director for the Alaska Afterschool Network and has been working in the field of positive youth development since he was a youth himself. He has extensive knowledge and experience working with youth from ages 3 to 24. Thomas has been offering quality training for more than 15 years on a wide variety of topics. Our second presenter today is Julia Smith in Sitka. She is the Prevention Director for Sitkans Against Family Violence, or SAFE, and has been working in violence prevention since 2006. She supports the Sitka Youth Leadership Committee, which is a group of young leaders, also known as SILK, dedicated to building bridges and promoting respect across cliques, schools, and communities. Our final presenters come from Nome and are part of the Nome Native Youth Leadership Organization. Sherri Anderson is the Youth Services Specialist with Nome Eskimo Community. NNYLO was started in 1988 and has been going strong ever since. Both Sitka and Nome may have some bonus speakers with us joining us from their sites this hour. So thank you everyone again, and I am going to turn this over to our first presenter now, Thomas Azzarella.
Great. Well, thank you, Amy, and thank you, everyone, for joining us today with the Alaska Afterschool Network and the Resource Basket for Youth Voice Training. I'm going to start our training out with just a little bit of general overview first on what is youth voice and this idea of how do we incorporate youth voice and leadership and choice inside of our program. This information that I'm going to be sharing is based off of the youth worker methods from the Center for Youth Program Quality, the David Weichert Center. This is a national training set that really is focused on how can we improve youth program quality and ensure that young people have the supports inside of their programs to succeed and achieve. So the first thing we're going to take a look at is this idea of youth voice and youth program quality. As you can see, this idea of youth voice and engagement is at the top of our pyramid, but it's also found at the bottom of our pyramid in the idea of youth voice and governance. When we're talking about this idea of program quality, we're really looking at what is the pyramid of youth program quality. It includes 4 major areas: having a safe environment, a supportive environment, peer interactions, and youth engagement. We can't expect young people in our programs to be highly engaged with having strong voice and opportunities for engagement inside of our programs if we're not ensuring that youth feel safe and supported inside of our programs, or that they're having positive peer interactions. For the purpose of this training, we're going to take a look at these higher levels of program quality, which really is about engaging young people in leadership and about engaging their voice in decision making. Underneath the pyramid, you see circled the youth voice and governance. This is an organizational structure. Some of your organizations may have youth involved in your board, some may have a youth advisory council, or may have strong kind of youth engagement components inside of your governance for your organization. We'll talk a little bit more about that as this webinar goes on. The first activity we're going to do is everyone's going to get a chance here to have a destination vacation. So I want you to take a listen to 3 different choice options that you'll have. When I'm done reading those choice options, I want you to select which option of vacation you would want to go on. The first choice is an all-expense paid trip. You'll be traveling to lovely Antler, Oklahoma, population 2,453. You'll get a lovely stay at the Forest Lodge Hotel. Actually, it's the only hotel in town. Antler is a nice town, but for liability reasons, we thought it would be best if you didn't wander around, so we're going to bring all your meals to you at the hotel. They'll be provided by the Country Kitchen catering services during your stay. During your visit, we don't want you to leave the hotel, and Antler is quite safe, but it's important that you don't take any risks. The mayor will stop by and give you a quick overview of the history of the town. So that was option 1, Antler, Oklahoma. Choice 2, you get to choose any city or country that you would like to visit. You will be staying in a beautiful 5-star hotel. You will know that We know that you want to explore your city and the vacation destination that you chose. So you'll feel free to be able to walk around, and the concierge will help you instead of small group tours, schedule private tours and activities, and provide transportation for you as you go on your adventures. At your disposals will be maps and guide informations about the city, and as long as recommendations for great restaurants. Since you don't speak the language, or maybe you won't speak the language there, depending on where you choose to travel, a translator will be provided at your availability. There is a bank with currency exchange located in the lobby. So that's choice 2. You get to choose the city that you'll be viewing. Choice 3 is you don't know the city or country that you're going to go to for this vacation. You'll be staying at a beautiful hotel, but we can't tell you which hotel you'll be staying at. And we're not really quite sure on what to tell you in regards to the language, because you'll find out when you get there. You won't have a map, and you won't know anything about their culture. Your US dollars won't be accepted there, as well as you won't know the exchange rate. If you'd like to explore the city, you're going to have to do so on your own, because we don't have any information in regards to the travel map. So what I'd like you to do now in the poll is choose which of these 3 destinations you would like to choose. Choice 1, Antler, Oklahoma, where everything is set for you. Choice 2, where you get to choose your own location of your vacation with support. And choice 3, you don't know where you're going to, and you're left to kind of figure it out as you go. Please go ahead and vote. Would you choose choice 1, choice 2, or choice 3? Well, we're seeing quite a few folks for choice B. I don't know why anyone's not choosing Oklahoma. And we see a few folks that are being adventurous and choosing choice C. Great. So what might be some of the reasons in the chat box you can write? What are some of the reasons why you chose choice C or choice B or choice C? And if you would, put choice B or choice C so we know why you chose that. We have a few folks who said choice C sounds like an adventure. Others saying about choice B because of the support. A few more for the adventurers. Some said B because of the maps and someone who speaks the language. B because of the choices. So we can see there's a continuum of reasons why people are choosing which destination are. Oh, as we go through our webinar today, I want you to think about this idea of if your youth program is a destination vacation for your youth that you're serving, you want to think of how are we providing the right choice, options, and supports to help young people feel supported and not tossed out into the wild on their own or left with no decisions making. The next piece we're going to talk about is this idea of adultism. Adultism refers to bias against young people. It's really talking about an oppression or discrimination or unconscious assumption that adults are better than youth, or that young people are inferior or less important. Next question. Next slide. And we're switching. Hold on, we got a little question bloop. Great. The next piece with this idea of adultism. Adultism can manifest itself in many ways. It can look like stereotyping youth. All teens are troublemakers, we oftentimes hear inside of our news or inside of other folks. We also hear common sayings such as children should be seen and not heard. Or adults assuming they know better than youth, even in areas that they know nothing about. And lastly, sometimes adultism can take the form of adults using mocking statements or tones of voice that they would never use with another adult. We're talking about this idea of adultism because it's important to make sure that we're checking our own biases as adults. For even some of us who may be very close to the age of the youth we're working with, it's important to recognize that we are valuing young people and their points of view. We're next going to ask a quick question and see your thoughts on this. So, which of the following of these quotes is not an example of adultism? 1. Kids don't know how to interact with each other unless they have a phone. 2. I'm the adult, listen to me. 3. You should have studied harder for your exam. 4. When I was a kid. Please choose the option that you think is one that's not an example of adultism. We're seeing a large collection of folks choose option C, and option C is correct. While we're making a statement, you should have studied harder for your exam, it's not a form of adultism. When we use statements like, when I was a kid, I used to have to walk 7 miles through the snow to get to my school, those are statements that oftentimes says that I had it harder than you, and your experience doesn't matter as much. It's not every time, I'm not saying that every time we use that type of statement that's a form of adultism, but it's important for us to realize and think about what we're saying and how we're projecting it towards young people. All right. Next, we're going to talk about this idea of the voice ladder and the methods behind supporting it. So this is looking at what are the different ways that we can provide voice inside of our programs, and how can we work our way up the ladder to reach the highest points of youth voice and engagement and leadership. At the very bottom of our ladder is this idea of having no voice or false voice. This oftentimes includes tokenisms or having 1 or 2 youth leadership roles to give the appearance that youth have voice. It's oftentimes a form of kind of decoration that we may do for our board or for a grant. Using youth to indirectly help support a cause, so we might just have a youth up on stage with us for a media or photo opportunities, or put that in a grant. Hey, we're using youth. Youth have input, and we have a young person write a letter of support. Oftentimes, this bottom area of the ladder with no voice and false voice is really manipulating young people, and oftentimes can cause disengagement for young people, because they feel manipulated and like it's not truly their program. The next rung of the ladder talks about this idea of input. This is where youth give feedback and input to the adults. This can be through structured ways such as surveys or focus groups, or pre and post formal surveys, and can also look at informal ways such as asking young people what they think. When we solicit input, it's asking for young people to give a small amount of information for us that we may or may not consider and use in our decision making. The next rung of the ladder, which moves us up higher on our ladder of youth voice, is choice. Youth have real relevant choice about how they spend their time processing offerings. This is a step that may have the widest range inside of it, from simple closed-ended choices between activity options to important open-ended questions about how to run things. So we oftentimes see this in an after-school program, and maybe a choice between 3 different activities: gym, arts and crafts, or science. Maybe one form of providing choice, or it may also be inside of a youth leadership group, on a group deciding what area of focus they're going to be choosing for this year's action project. At the top rung of the ladder is this idea of shared leadership. When youth experience shared leadership of a program with adults, the leadership opportunity is for all youth, not just those who are presumed to be a leader. Youth take active roles managing their own time and learning. Youth have real opportunities to shape programs, and adults provide the support and safety for the young folks inside of their programs to have meaningful decision-making and leadership roles. The important part to realize with this idea of shared leadership is at the top of the ladder, we as adults are still there in presence. Just like if we had a young person up on a ladder or a youth on a ladder, we'd want to ensure that that ladder is supported by an adult down below to ensure the safety of that young person in that group. How do we support this idea of the youth ladder? Is by looking at these two concepts of scaffolding and increasing challenges. When we're providing scaffolding for youth voice, it's important sometimes to remember to get out of the way of young people. Oftentimes, many young people don't have ample opportunities to make meaningful decisions in areas of their life. On the other hand, if young people are given wide open choices with little support making decisions, it can be very overwhelming. Similarly, if young people are given voice in how their youth programs run, they will need strong support from the adults in that program. We're going to talk a little bit more about this idea of how do we create scaffolding for supporting youth voice. Providing effective scaffolding is perhaps one of the most challenging and most important things you can do as a youth worker. We introduce this idea and concept oftentimes through our work on activities. If I'm teaching young people how to play basketball, I would need to break down the game of basketball and the skills needed. Everything from practicing dribbling with a basketball to practicing shots and passing. So we can't expect young people to jump right into playing a game of basketball without the skills they need to be able to successfully play on a team. The same thing goes for providing a youth opportunity to have voice. We want to ensure that we're breaking up larger tasks to provide opportunities for them to succeed. We want to provide opportunities for them to take risks and potentially fail, but be there to help support them in their achievement. It's also important to make sure that we're continually looking out for all members of the youth group and ensuring that we're providing those opportunities for everyone. It can oftentimes be a trap for youth workers to just allow one or two members of the group to be the leaders of the group. And those leaders of the group then may prevent others from practicing the opportunity of having voice and choice inside of your program. This is an important cognitive skill for young people to develop because outside of our youth program, they're going to continually be having to make choices throughout their life. And we want to prepare them for success as they leave our programs and be able to have a strong voice in which they are able to present themselves with. The next piece is this idea of increasing challenges, roles, and responsibilities over time. It's important that we are providing opportunities for young people to push and challenge themselves in different roles and opportunities. When we're talking about this idea of leadership and roles inside of which an organization or a group can have leadership, it's important to think outside of just president, vice president, treasurer, and secretary. There's lots of opportunities to give young people opportunities for leadership. It could be anything from being the person who's responsible for recording your afternoon snack, to taking attendance, to then leading a group in a challenging discussion. We want to make sure that we're providing those opportunities to give young people the opportunity to develop those skills. Next, we're going to take a look at this idea of the spectrum of leadership. And I apologize if this slide's a little blurry. We can make sure we send it out so it's a little clearer in the post follow-up notes. So there's lots of different ways inside of the spectrum of youth leadership that we can talk about this idea of leadership. Not one of these is explicitly right. At the very bottom of this, the far left of your spectrum, is this idea of youth as a client, that youth are there to be served by the adults and have no input into their programs. We will sometimes see these type of programs and services oftentimes in facilities that have very restrictive environments, oftentimes because of behavioral challenges of young people or juvenile justice issues. We want to continually move those young people, though, to the right on the spectrum to help empower them and develop the skills that they'll need for life. The next section is this idea of youth as participants. Youth have input into the programs. Decision-making is kind of occasionally happening, and it's solicited by the youth worker. This is where we may hear a youth worker, after-school staff member, say something along the lines of, hey, what would you guys like to do today? And then maybe have some options in there. Youth involvement is the next piece on our spectrum. It's where youth regularly have input into their program and decision making. This may be where a group is using information and sharing it out to their club members. Youth-driven. Youth have substantial and meaningful roles in leadership and participation, including in the governance and the programming in the programming offering. Youth-run. Youth have the majority of the staff positions or leadership positions, and they help structure the day-to-day management. And finally, youth-led. Youth-led is really looking at the highest level of youth leadership spectrum. This is where there may be youth on boards, they are serving as the director or co-director of a group, and they have strong support from their adults. We'll hear examples of this from both Sitka and Nome, where they're really at this higher end of the spectrum, or the far right end of the spectrum of youth leadership. Next, we're going to take a quick poll and see which area of the spectrum would you see yourself in your program on? Do you see your youth as clients, your youth as participants, youth as being involved, youth being driven, youth run, or youth led? And again, there is no right or wrong answer for this. This is a continual process that we're all working on to improve the opportunities we give to our youth. So we're seeing a kind of mixed variety. We had a few folks who had some earlier options and changing. We're seeing a pretty average spread, a bell curve that we're seeing, with most being at youth involvement and youth driven, and then a few in the other categories. Again, this is something really largely dependent on our program. Thank you. So as we're thinking of this idea of youth voice and leadership, it's important for us to think of how we are asking for youth voice, that we're not doing so in a superficial or artificial way. This is one of my favorite cartoons from when I was growing up, Pinky and the Brain. Well, what are we going to do tonight, Brain? Same thing we do every night, Pinky. Try to take over the world. So often as youth workers, we may pose to a group of youth a question that we think is very open-ending. What would you like to do today at program? But youth are going to go back routinely to the same things that they've experienced. So if I go to a group of youth, say I'm working with a group of elementary school kids in a gym, and I say, what do you want to do? They're probably going to say, I want to play dodgeball, I want to play kickball, and they're going to resort to the things that they're familiar with. Our role as leaders is to help to expand those opportunities by providing them ample opportunity to make choice. This idea of choice really comes on a continuum, just like what we talked about with that first activity when you were choosing your dream destination. On the far left, there's not enough freedom. On the left, there's this idea of not enough freedom or lack of interest. In the middle, there's meaningful choice with supportive structures. On the right, too much freedom that can lead to frustration. We see this inside of youth groups. Again, when we have a great flow and things are moving well, it's an opportunity where we see that young people are connecting well. On the flip side, if young people don't have enough freedom inside of their program, they get disengaged and oftentimes behaviors can start occurring. The same can occur with this idea of if youth have too much freedom. If we just say, okay, you guys run the show, it's your program now, and walk out of the room, young people can oftentimes at first feel exhilarated by that, and then can oftentimes feel burnt out and can cause behavioral problems. So what we'd like folks to do when you're done with the webinar today is think back and reflect a little bit on this idea. Examine this idea of youth voice in your program or activities, and we want you to make a plan for increasing youth voice in your setting. There's lots of small and little ways that you can increase youth voice and planning. Anything from giving youth simple choice options to, again, incorporating more opportunities for leadership and governance inside of your programs or activities. We're going to do a quick reflection poll here just to see what folks are feeling in regards to the first opening part. And then we'll hear from both Sitka and Nome about examples that they're doing for youth leadership. Let me know right now in a simple reflection of how are you feeling about youth voice right now? 1, I'm not ready to implement youth voice at my site. 3, I get it, but I still have questions that need to spend more time exploring youth voice. 5, I'm feeling ready and prepared to begin implementing youth voice at my site. Seeing a lot of folks at 5, some in the middle. And again, any of these options are okay. It's about where you feel right now. Great. And we'll have an opportunity to ask questions at the end of the presentation for those of you who'd like to have more time exploring this idea or have questions. Also know that both the Resource Basket and the Alaska After School Network are here as support systems for you as youth workers and exploring this idea of how to incorporate more youth voice and leadership inside of your program. Our contact information will be at the end of the training. Next up, we're going to hear from actual providers of youth service providers. We're going to hear both from Sitka and from Nome. And I would like to turn it over right now to Julia Smith with the Sitka Youth Leadership Committee. All right, and we are just going to wait a moment as we get Julia connected. She'll be with us in a moment, so please hold on, and we'll get started with Julia sharing it shortly about the Sitka Youth Leadership Committee. All right, it looks like we're having a little difficulties connecting with Julia right now, so we are going to pause for a moment and try and get her line connected to us. We apologize for the delay. We'll get started here in a moment.
Okay, sorry about that. I think I didn't have the microphone on. We were talking away and I just looked in the chat box. So my name is Julia and I am the support person for the Sitka Youth Leadership Committee. Hopefully you can hear us now. If you can't, please indicate in the chat box. And today we're going to talk a little bit about what Silk does and the structure of our group and how youth helped inform that structure. And then the roles that both youth and adults play in our group. I also have 2 teens with me today, and I'll go ahead and let them introduce themselves.
Hi, my name is Brittany Henry. I'm a senior at Mount Edgecombe High School, and this is my 2nd year in Silk.
I'm Elizabeth, and I'm a junior at Mount Edgecombe, and this is my 1st year at Silk.
So let me go back a slide, because I was actually flipping through the slides.
So Silk is the Sitka Youth Leadership Committee. It started way back in 2009, and our mission is dedicated to promoting respect and building bridges among youth in Sitka and across Alaska.
In Silk, we have 3 areas of focus, and all of our projects help us to improve cross-school relationships, especially with Sitka High School and Mount Edgecombe High School, and that's our main focus. And we raise awareness and educate teens about healthy relationships and teen dating violence. And we work on building a positive peer culture and community climate.
And we're doing all of this through education, media, and leadership.
So our past projects include facilitating discussions. It was called Teen Talks, and presenting at statewide conferences like Lead On and OSOG. Using media to create positive messages like radio interviews, videos, social media, and campaigns. And also an outdoor kayaking trip, and you gain leadership skills where youth facilitate conversations and mentor younger youth in the backcountry.
So we're going to talk a little bit about the structure of Silk and how we create opportunities for youth voice. And youth really, at the very beginning of our group, youth really played a role in informing the structure of Silk early on. And I strongly believe that these foundational pieces that were set in those early days really helped with success over the long run, with group cohesion, with buy-in, and with regular attendance from youth. So we'll talk a little bit about our setting. It's a very comfortable setting. We have couches. It feels like it is in a living room in our agency, but it feels very cozy and comfortable and intimate. We have lots of food all the time. It's fun. We play games. And there's a sense of feeling productive, and we stay focused even through the fun. I also recognize that routine is critical for youth and for success, so that they know what to expect and that there aren't any surprises. Our weekly meetings are at the same time on the same day every week, unless there's a conflict, and then we all agree to change it for that 1 week. Our agenda is the same, uses the same format, and is visible, and we take notes and follow up with students and send those notes out after every single meeting. Is there anything else you wanted to add? So this is kind of what a typical agenda looks like. This is the format. So we start with check-ins. We have a time for announcements, anything coming up. We go over some business, we do some planning, and we always close. And so I'll let Brittany talk a little bit about our check-ins and what those look like.
So our check-ins are, it's every week, and it's just highs and lows about your week and just how you're doing.
So something good that happened in the last week, and maybe something that you're struggling with or challenging with. And
Yeah.
It's how we start our group meeting every single week. And it really helps to create that safe and supportive environment. It allows some time for connection and some time to get to know each other, because some of the students are from different schools. And an opportunity to just kind of shake off the day and get it out, and then create some space for focusing on the business of Silk. We also have guiding principles that we use. We have them up and they're visible, and we use them as a reference point for all of the work that we do in Silk. And again, youth helped identify these guiding principles early on, and we keep them up. They're visible. There's a picture on the slide here that shows some of the principles that we are using as a guide and as parameters for our group. Each year we evaluate those principles, we go over them, we review them, and we evaluate whether or not they're still relevant to the group, and there's an opportunity to add or to delete things if we don't feel like they're relevant. That's not really something that we've experienced. People feel from year to year that these are good parameters. We don't like to call them rules, we like to call them guiding principles or parameters. And Brittany, would you like to highlight one or two that stand out to you?
Yes, I like the step up, step back, because if you're kind of quiet, you should talk more and step up. And if you're an external person, to step back and create space for all voices, and also walk the walk and follow through and reliability.
So we talk a lot about what it means to be a leader inside Silk and also outside of Silk, and making sure that people understand that the values that we hold as a group in Silk are also the values that we're carrying out in our everyday lives. So walking the walk, not just talking the talk, and being accountable. And the space for all voices, or step up, step back. We talk a lot about creating balance in our group and making sure that each person has a chance to share and to be seen and to be heard. One of the other things that youth helped create in the beginning was incentives and what youth need to get to silk, what they feel like they need to get to silk. So I asked that question, and folks came up with a list of things, including food was a big one, fun, door prizes. So each meeting we have a drawing for something very simple. You know, it's a $2 to $3 door prize. We have gift cards. If they attend 5 meetings, and they're eligible to receive a gift card to the coffee shop or to the grocery store, the movie theaters. And then there's some other needs that people had, and I'll let Brittany share.
So what will get me to silk is the productive work we discuss and do, and also the opportunities that the group offers, and to put on my resume.
Also, one that stood out that I really like is that they said that, you know, because part of our mission is about bridging the gap between the schools and also building a positive peer culture, you know, they really felt like it was important for them to say hi to each other in the hallways at school or on the street when they see each other out in the community. So that's something that they said that they wanted. And I think that happens. Is that, yeah?
Yeah, create connections and friendships.
Yeah, so we're trying to carry out what we do in Silk out in our regular everyday lives. So really, youth voice has been incorporated throughout the program, from development to implementation to reflection. And these are just some of the things that youth are doing. So they're involved, like I said, they were involved with creating the structure. In the beginning, they identified the problem that needed to be addressed, which in the very, very beginning was this gap between the school, the barriers between the two schools. They outlined a vision, they outlined their core components, the education, the media, the leadership pieces, they outlined their core values. They help with planning projects, they create timelines, they make the final decisions about what we're doing and when we're doing something. When we go out and we facilitate conversation, they're in the spotlight, they're the ones facilitating, and we spend a lot of time preparing for those conversations. They're giving the presentations both on a local level and on a state level. They're recording, they're writing and recording media pieces. They're providing feedback to media consultants that we bring in who help us create those media pieces. They're informing the content of almost everything that we're doing, helping with coordinating events like the Choose Respect March. You all are talking to administrators and teachers and to your peers, and helping to recruit new members. Do you want to share a little bit about how we do that?
So we hand out brochures and just questionnaires about why you want to become in Silk and what you think is like respectful and disrespectful. And we just,
yeah, so they're going out and recruiting their peers, and they're using a questionnaire that youth developed. So they decided which questions they wanted to ask. And then when we bring those questionnaires back, they assess whether or not this person would be a good fit, and then they go out and invite them to the group. They're also mentoring the folks who've been in the group, like Brittany, who's been here for a couple of years, is mentoring the new folks who come in each year, and role modeling. And each year we're setting personal and group goals. Do either of you remember what your personal goal is for this year?
For this year, my personal goal is to gain more leadership skills and better for public speaking.
My group goal was to become a better public speaker. And
great. So at the end of the year, we'll reflect on how well we did, and whether or not we reached that goal. There's also internships available where youth gets paid to help support Silk outside of our meeting time. And then we reflect on everything. We use a discussion formula to facilitate a debrief pretty much on everything that we do. So there is a lot of built-in time for reflection, especially at the mid-year point and at the end of the year. And I think it's really important to note that things like the guiding principles, even though we look at those and we reevaluate, we revise them from time to time, we never change the core foundation of the group or the core function of the group. Our projects may change from year to year, but our vision, our mission, and our core components never change. So there's a really clear purpose, and youth kind of know what they're getting into when they start with the group. And they know beforehand because the youth are going out and explaining what silk is. So just kind of to answer the question, what happens as a result of incorporating youth voice? I mean, I think you get much better results. They step up, they are in the spotlight, they are volunteering to go and do radio interviews, to facilitate conversations, to speak out at events like the Choose Respect March. The projects are much more creative and much more interesting and really relevant to youth. I think that the ideas that they come up with are much better than the ideas that adults come up with for youth. There's excitement and enthusiasm, I think a sense of accomplishment at the end of the year, and they discover new things about themselves. They really start to push themselves and challenge themselves. I think Brittany's a great example. Last year was her first year in Silk, and she was kind of feeling it out and figuring out if it was a good fit. And then at the end of the year, really started volunteering for things. And this year is always one of our youth presenters, applied to be the intern, and so has really pushed herself and challenged herself in the last year and a half.
Hi, Julia. This is Amy with the Resource Basket, and we have just a couple minutes before we turn it over to Nome, please.
So like I said, the projects are the things that we come up with are pretty awesome. So youth came up with this poster. This is one of our media projects to help kind of bridge the gap between the schools. So this is one of our campaigns that we'll be launching later this month. Another one that we're launching right now is a poster about teen dating violence and healthy relationships. We have a movie theater ad in this poster, and we've recorded some PSAs. And this is going out to the community this month because it's Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month. And then probably some of you have heard of the I Am campaign. We launched that last fall as a way to kind of promote self-respect and celebrate diversity and kind of get this online social media dialogue going about feeling good about yourself and seeing others, valuing others for their unique qualities. And they've created things like the video toolkit, which we have a train the trainer component, and we've used this in several different youth groups to engage youth in conversations around respect and bullying and taking action and creating change in communities. And we have a train the trainer, and we would love to come to any one of your communities and help train your youth. And again, this was created by youth. The video is all youth voices, youth faces, and the questions that we've created for the toolkit were created by youth. So I think we're probably at the end of the time. I don't want to take up too much more time, but again, incorporating youth voice leads to much, much better results. I think in Silk, we've created a sense of connection, and we're really working on bridging that gap across schools and across cliques and across communities. And adults, the role that I play is really to help set the tone and help establish the structure and the routine, but all those things are again informed by youth. I play the role, I ask a lot of questions, as they know. I do a lot of the follow-up and I help move things forward, but they are in the role of making decisions, providing input and feedback, discussion, and when we're out in the public, they're really in the spotlight talking about their group. Is there anything you all would like to share about why you keep coming back to Silk?
I thought we already did that. I come back to Silk because it's fun and productive at the same time about important stuff.
I come to Silk to work on my personal goal, which is public speaking, and it's really helped me since I started coming here. I've been presenting and improving on my voice and getting my voice heard. And
Awesome. And I think we have a PSA, but we'll play it at the end of the webinar, and you can hear them talking about respect and healthy relationships. So that's all for us in Sitka. Thank you. And we'll turn it over to the folks in Nome to talk about their youth leadership group.
Thank you so much, Julia and Silk, for joining us during the presentation. We really appreciate your time. This is Amy with the Resource Basket, and it appears that our Nome group might have been kicked off or bumped off temporarily from our webinar, so we're hopeful that they'll be coming back on. I will share a little bit. I'll just double check, is Nome on? If you are, please chat in and let us know. It doesn't appear we're seeing the Nome Native Youth Leadership Organization, but we'll do a call out just in case I am mistaken. Okay, well, hopefully the crew will be back. We do have Sherri and some Nome Belt High School students who were gathered together to be with us, so perhaps there's a connection issue. And if they come on, we'll have them join us as quickly and swiftly as we can. We have a time check of about 10 more minutes. And so I will start just to share their slides that they prepared for you, and then we'll open it up to some Q&A and share a couple of resources at the very end of the webinar with everyone. So first of all, Nome Eskimo community is based obviously in Nome, and they work with the Nome Native Youth Leadership Group. They do a variety of things, and I think first and foremost, they're friends to each other. They get involved in the community and volunteer. They help their elders. They attend conferences. They definitely get involved in the community, and they've done things like public service announcements and listen to one another. That is a picture of the group outside of their high school. So at the beginning of the year, they like to host a lock-in, and this is their opportunity to hear youth voice. During this particular event, they help plan the event, and then they're able to dive deep into topics such as bullying, self-esteem, and even depression. They invite their elders in to spend time with them during this lock-in, and they use it as a collaborative event with other entities in the Nome community, especially talking about healthy relationships and even tobacco use. So again, this lock-in is a real opportunity for these entities to hear from the youth and for the youth to kind of set up their year together in a supportive and fun format. In the past, they've also worked with their local radio station to create public service announcements on these issues that are of importance to them, so the whole community and region can hear the voices of the youth. One of the campaigns they've worked on is My Choice, My Future, which is another hashtag campaign like Silk's I Am campaign. And this was featuring right here a former Nome graduate who's attended college and is giving back to the community now. And they want to highlight why these former Nomites or these current Nomites and students are continuing to be involved with their community and the choices that they've made for their future. They've done a lot of brainstorming. This is one way that they incorporate youth voice, is to do posters and kind of put out things that are important to them and organize it and look at what are some of those issues that they're going to really dive deeper into for their school year. Here is one of the youth of the Nome Native Youth Leadership Organization. And she said that it's been really wonderful that they've gotten to go to the villages around their community in the Norton Sound region and make new friends. She started off in her freshman year, and she's been helping the community and has the ability to have her voice heard and knows that her voice is heard, that she is valued, and she's a community member of her high school and helps her to make connections by being involved in NNYLO. These are two cousins, Sierra and Taya Tucker. They were selected as the co-presidents for the organization. They also attended this past fall's First Alaskan Institute's Elders and Youth Conference. So those are some of the wonderful youth that are part of NNYLO, and you can hear that they have their structure set up where they have co-presidents. As I mentioned in our introduction, the group started back in 1988 and have been volunteering and being involved with their community ever since. And some photos there from when they went to the Elders and Youth Conference in 2014, and they were actually able to do a presentation workshop at the conference and kind of putting together their activities and expertise and putting their voice to it at a much larger audience. So they were given an opportunity for a bigger venue to give their voice at. So I apologize to be the representative from Nome on the webinar today. I do, disclaimer, will share that I lived in Nome for 6 years, so I am familiar with NNYLO and have seen them in the community myself. So I feel I can speak on their behalf slightly. We do have their slides to share, and I know we have their contact information, which I'll share with you in just a moment, so we can follow up and further connect with the Nome Native Youth Leadership Organization and Nome Eskimo community. So as we begin to wrap up here, we have just one more poll that we'd like to open for all of you. And this is a final reflection that is similar to the one you did earlier after following Thomas's. And we want you to know how you feel about youth voice right now. And this is something that you can actually use with your youth. You can ask maybe perhaps after a session or time together to show their fingers. If they're feeling a certain way, give that a 1. If they're feeling another way, give that a 3. And another way, 5. And then they can give you that quick visual representation of how they're handling things at the moment. And you as their facilitator or supporter can have a handle on that. So for this webinar, 1, you would vote if you say, I still don't understand how I can implement youth voice, and I'd like to talk to someone further about that. And if you'd like to talk to someone further, the Resource Basket and Thomas with the Alaska After School Network would be very happy to oblige. Number 3, if you were to put up 3 fingers, I'm understanding better how to incorporate youth voice and need to think on it some more. You know, I'm starting to see these pieces and understand the guiding principles here, and I need to maybe focus and reflect on how this can be in my setting. And 5, I'm ready to increase more opportunities for youth voice at my site, of which we are seeing 3/4 of our audience and participants selecting number 5 right now. So that's great. Priscilla, I will just let you know that the slides will be available for download in just a moment. As well as a few other additional resources that Sitka has shared with all of you. So I want to thank you all so much. We are going to have just a few moments where we can open up for questions. So what we'd like to do is, well, first I want to thank our presenters, Thomas and Sitka, Julia, and the gals from Silk for sharing their knowledge and expertise with us, and Nome for sharing their information from the slides, and unfortunately could not join us for that portion. So what we can do is open up the chat box. If you'd like to throw in a question there, we only have just a moment for them, and we will also unmute the telephone line. If you are on the teleconference and do not have a question, you can then individually mute your line by pressing *6. So we have just unmuted the teleconference line. So if you are listening that way, we just ask you to remain quiet unless you'd like to ask a question, and we'll make sure through chat and phone that we can hear them to all. We did have some questions earlier, which we'll try to revisit for one moment. Julia, I know that it was asked if you can maybe answer via your chat box. How long are the Silk meetings typically? Or if you are able, you can also speak through your microphone again into the computer. 90 minutes. Julia has said
Okay,
that
we'll
their
try
meetings
through the speakers. I
weekly
wrote
are
it in the
typically
chat box.
90 minutes
This
in
is
length.
Julia.
We had a
Our
We had a
meetings
question
are
earlier of
90
what to
minutes
do if
each
someone
week.
breaks one
But
of the
when we
Silk
prepare for
principles,
presentations, we
or does
usually
that
meet
not
outside of our
happen?
meetings
So Julia, you spoke about
for
the
additional time
principles
just to make
that the
sure that
group
we're
has
prepared.
agreed and
So
created
sometimes for an
together.
hour and a half.
And if one were to break a principle, what may happen, or if that just doesn't happen? Again, Julia, if you want to answer via text box or through your microphone. Hi, yes.
Yes, sorry, we had some technical difficulties and lost connection.
Oh, we are so sorry to hear that. This is Amy, and I did go through your slides as best as I could. And if everyone can hang on for just a couple of extra minutes into our webinar time frame here, we do have Nome who is called in on our teleconference. And if you could just maybe just very briefly in a minute share something on your behalf, and I'm really sorry it didn't work out technology-wise.
Hey, Amy, this is Sherri Anderson, and I'm out here at Nome High School with three youth and also Thomasina Prince and Nancy Binky as well. But I'll go ahead and have our youth speak up about being a part of Nome Native Youth Leadership Organization. And Sierra, go ahead. Yeah. What you thought about NNILO and how you've been involved in it. So, hi, this is Sierra Tucker. I am co-president of NNYLO, and this is my second year in NNYLO, and I've had so many opportunities from it, and we've participated in many conferences, and we've held our own retreat here, or walk-in retreat. And with NNYLO, we try to do things in the community. We've helped with Mexico's Bazaar and other types of things. We try to help clean up after events and everything. And we've helped with Cataluta Nome, which is a celebration of Native Americans month. It was November, and that's how we celebrate it, Cataluta, and we helped out with that and many other things. And here's Tia.
Okay, hello, this is Tia Tucker. I'm a senior and I'm co-president of Sierra, and I've been a part of NNYLO for 3 years. NNYLO has been a great experience for me. It's really changed who I am, because I was really shy when I first joined, and now I feel like I can talk to anyone, do anything else, and it's just been a great experience for me. And we've helped out with so many events in town, and we've held a lot of events as well. And we like to focus on our culture and our tradition and our elders, and just trying to connect the community. And I think that's why I really like our group. And I'll pass it on now.
I'm Stacey Elwater, and I'm a sophomore. And NNYLO started in 1988. My mom was pretty cool. And I've been NNYLO for 3 years now. And yeah, this year. So with NNYLO, like I said, it's here, I guess. We've gone to many different conferences, and we do try to incorporate culture and everything, cultural, but we also try to work on relationships with peers and everything. And so I've also seen from all the conferences that we've attended and some Rockets retreats that we've held, that a lot of people get more comfortable with our group, because we have weekly meetings every Wednesday during lunch, and it gives us time to talk or go over an agenda or things we want to go over, just get everyone to do. And we're really going to take us on a project to make a culture program for teens in our community. And NNYLO has been going on since 1988. We have a pretty good number, and we always try to get more people here. And I think it's gotten larger since last year, and we do a lot of stuff. Wanted to add that. Any questions?
Thank you so much to NNYLO, to Tia, and Sierra and Stacy, who joined us even after having some technical difficulties. We know that couldn't have been very easy, and we really appreciate getting to hear more about your exciting organization. Thanks everyone for hanging on a couple of extra minutes, and I'm going to share with you our contact information, so that's available if you like to get a hold of any of us with some of those follow-up questions. We also ask that you please take a minute just to answer a quick 6 questions about in a survey about the webinar, and you can click on that link seen from the screen here. We just encourage, as we encourage providing youth voice, we want to hear your voice on our training offerings, so your feedback is much appreciated. And then finally, I want to share with you some resources from the webinar, including a copy of the presentation itself. You can download any one of these by clicking on them and uploading. Some of these are examples of tools that, that are made available from the Sitka Youth Leadership Committee, things that they use to help structure themselves or provide recognition. And a couple of them are even short videos and PSAs that they've created about respect in their IM campaign and healthy relationships. So we encourage you to download these images or files that could be helpful and of interest to continue on learning from our presenters today. As we mentioned, this training is part of the Supporting Youth webinar series that the Resource Basket and Alaska After School Network are offering. Our next webinar will be scheduled in the month of May. You can keep tuned to our website and e-newsletters through both of us to find out more about future webinars and other upcoming opportunities. Just contact Thomas or Amy to be added if you are not a part of it. And so on behalf of the Resource Basket and Alaska After School Network, we thank you all for being here today, especially our presenters spanning our great state from Nome to Sitka to be with us and share some of their authentic youth voice experiences. Thank you so much and have a great rest of your Thursday.